We are live, right on time. Ain't no
Yeah,
worries, right? Uh, actually, we've been sitting here for a while chatting,
we
so
have been.
sometimes a little peek behind the curtain. Sometimes Lester is scrambling to meet the bell, but no problems here today. Kind of a lazy Sunday, feel to everything, so makes things a little easier. Got a chance to rewatch the game, so that's nice, right? Got to go back and take a look at some things, but some fun stuff in this game. Also, that game felt like I don't know, the third like Godfather movie. Like it just kept going, and you're like, really? Is this how much longer do I kind of got? It's only midway through the third quarter. That fourth quarter took forever.
Speaking of monotonous, so watching the game live, Jim Irsay, please
Oh,
shut the hell up. But I watched the condensed version today, and when I got to the third quarter he was on, holy crap, it was just nonstop. It's like because it was just him, because it was just
yeah.
talking over the plays. Oh my god, dude, Jim Irsay, kudos for whatever he did in his life to get to where he is today. But I hope I never have to listen to him speak again.
Well, didn't he make his money the old-fashioned way?
I
Didn't
think
he
so.
inherited it?
I believe so. I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah, I do think he does some philanthropy. So I mean, he's not maybe
Yeah.
a total like
No, he does a
evil.
lot of great stuff for charity. I know I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
every now and then I pop up. I know the Colts are really big. They have the whole mental health awareness thing right now. They did a thing for that. I believe his daughter may be involved in that, but he's there too. So it's I'm all for it when these guys want to give back because it's what it's all about, giving back to the people.
But you were right. He was exhausting. And
Oh,
then when
exhausting.
you go back to the condensed, it's even more pronounced because
It's
the
just
the
him.
play-by-play guys never talk. Like it's just him droning on about stuff, and you're like, "What is happening here?" That's kind of remarkable. So, yeah. So we're back in the digs, back in the studio, and I mean, we got 3 weeks left.
I do.
It-
I tentatively I work downtown this Thursday, Friday. Like I said, I work downtown a couple days a week, tentatively. And those are also 2 days my wife is off this week. So she tells me if plans happen, she's going to do the paint job back here. We're going to hang up a couple items. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this.
Okay,
I got a couple items. I got this little bad boy. Look at this.
it's
Oh
just a
man,
baby football.
that's a baby football. You know,
Well, wait,
I
wait.
got the street
You're
sign.
a big guy. Is that a full-size football, and
This
it just
is,
looks like a
yeah.
baby football in your hands?
This is a full size. No, it's
Yeah.
a small one. If I saw it at a grocery store actually here in Wisconsin, it's they had a whole bunch of them. I'm like, well, that's kind of neat. It just goes on our little rack. So I got a couple items, so we should be good. And my dog snuck in here. She heard me talking, so now she's below my feet. So hopefully she shuts her mouth during the show.
All right. Speaking of the show, you want to get going?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears played another fake football game, this time against the Colts. They were winning for most of the game, but they ended up losing that fake football game. But how are you doing today?
Doing good. I mean, it was a fun game. I mean, preseason is what it is. I mean, going in, we have our expectations set. So I'm expecting bad football. I'm expecting, to see, certain positions I'm kind of watching. I want to see how matchups go. And even though the Bears had most of their stars on the bench, there are still a few, intriguing position battles to watch. So it's football. It's my favorite team. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's interesting that a lot of the starters did not play, and then there's a few guys banged up. You're not going to push that, and then so you got to see a lot of the guy number 25 through guy 90, right? And there's some guys that played extensively in this football game yesterday. That and I've been to 4 practices, and there were guys that I was like, who is that?
Yeah.
And I had to look, and for example, we'll probably talk about him at some point, but Robert Burns, like, did we ever see him at camp? Did he ever do it? And he was like a featured back in this game.
Yeah. Backup fullback. I mean, he's undrafted free agent. He's was getting some tailback reps, which kind of shows his versatility. So practice squad guy, but it's always nice to have the fullback getting some love.
Yeah, our friend Aaron, the WCG
Yeah.
hype guy, I'm sure
Yep.
is incredibly excited about a fullback being the featured back, even if it was practice football. So Bobby Burns, I'm going with that as
I
his
like
nickname.
Bobby Burns. Oh
Bobby
man.
Burns. We'll try to track him as the preseason wraps up and see if he makes it back to the practice squad. I think that's probably
Yeah.
his path. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's kick off like we do every show with our categories. We're doing full categories today because we have.
Have we actually kicked off the podcast yet? Has it been official, or do we was it kind of more of a cold open? I think today.
I kicked off the podcast while you
Okay.
were talking about your dog
Ah, I got you.
to the
Okay.
background. So
I'm
yes,
just
we are
making
we are
sure.
live with the
Okay.
podcast
I
here.
gotcha.
So Trench Tribute, where how we
Trench
start
tribute.
off all of our shows.
We're
Where
doing
we
all our categories today.
we're doing all our categories. We have been
Yes.
keeping the Trench Tribute even through the practices, but we're doing all categories because it was a football game yesterday that we thought was worth hitting all of the categories. So
Yeah.
Trench Tribute, who stood out to you in the trenches yesterday?
I was hoping it would be an offensive lineman, but among the reserves, I couldn't find anyone that stood out enough to me. So I'm going to go on defense, and I'm going to go with defensive end Terrell Lewis. You know, he just keeps flashing. Obviously he was drafted. We talked about him before. He was drafted as a 3-4 outside linebacker. Similar skill set to what the Bears asked, obviously their edges to do. He just didn't really catch on much in LA with the Rams. Here he is in Chicago. Got signed late last year against the Colts. He had 2 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumbles. His 2-week preseason numbers: 4 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, tackle for loss. This guy's making the roster, right? I mean, at this point, especially with a team that's struggling for guys that can rush the passer, Terrell Lewis is going to probably sneak in there on the roster.
Yeah, 100%. I did have him written down in case you did not mention him because he needs to be mentioned. Is a guy that from the early part of camp we've been looking at. He's been looking good in practices. Maybe miscast at his first stop. Looks like the Bears are maybe using him in a more appropriate manner. He can get off the edge. He's fast off the edge.
Nice bend too.
Yep.
I wasn't expecting that when I saw him play with the Bears. It's good.
So that's what you're looking for is rotational pieces at this point. Again, we signed Yannick Ngakoue, so you have a legitimate number 1 defensive end starter, but you're looking for other guys to take snaps. And it looks to me like you're not going to be able to keep this guy off the field. He's gonna be part of that rotation. Be shocked at this point if he doesn't make the 53. So
Yeah.
absolutely, that's a great one to start with. I had Ja'Tyre Carter written down on the offensive line. I thought I saw some good reps from him, but I also wanted to point out Dexter, our boy Dexter. I thought had some good reps. He looks good. I know the other rookie made a few plays as well.
Zach Pickens, I had him in my notes as well.
So
Nice
I think
game.
those rookie defensive tackles need to be shouted out here as they continue to their maturation and their development. And I think that for sure, at least Dexter, but if not, both of those guys are going to be counted on in the defensive tackle rotation this year too. So expect some production and some snaps from those guys when the season starts earlier rather than later.
Yeah. Speaking of defensive tackle, the whole D line as a whole, I mean, are they going to carry 9 guys? Are they going to carry 10 guys? The nice thing about what they have now is they have some positional versatility. Last year we saw Justin Jones, defensive tackle 3-tech. We saw him playing some edge. The Bears kind of played him that way. They signed Rasheem Green and DeMarcus Walker. Both guys have played defensive tackle throughout their career. Rasheem Green, he may be more of a bubble guy now. He didn't get big money. DeMarcus Walker is definitely going to be a core piece of this D line going forward, and he can give you that defensive end stuff, but he can also kick inside on passing down. So they have some options here on D line, which is I think we talked about last week. Last year's D line was atrocious, so the fact that they have an actual professional D line group this year is a good thing.
I mean, the worst group in the league, I think, by a country mile last year. I mean, we talked a lot about how Justin Jones was clearly the best player on that defensive line, and there wasn't really no one close to as number 2. And you kind of want Justin Jones to be maybe your number 3, number 4 best defensive lineman, right? And so now you get to the point where you kind of have some competence. I'm not saying they're a good defensive line yet. No one is going to say that, but they are at a level of competence which allows your secondary, which your back seven, which we do think is going to be really good, or potential to be really good, I should say, allows them to be able to have their impact and to shine. So yeah, it's important that rotation is deep, because none of those guys are going to take Herculean rep load, right? They're going to need to be rotated in and out to be fresh. And so all of these guys are important pieces here. That, if they're the 8th best defensive lineman, they're important because they're going to play a role.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of keep an eye on all those guys.
For sure.
All right. So a new category today, Lester. I'm very excited about this. We don't have a Fields report today because Justin Fields did not play in this game. And so we are going with the rookie DQ2 quarterback, Bagent, and we're calling this Bagent Orange.
The puns just flow.
We are very excited about the rookie quarterback who had a very nice and impressive performance. And so we want to focus on that. What did you see out of Bagent that you liked?
He looks the part. Yes, it's against backups. Yes, he's playing with backups. But Coach Eberflus talked about the reason why they moved him up the depth chart and had him play second, because they wanted to see him with, better talent around him. And 9 of 10 passing in the game. He, of course, led that nice 92-yard drive, I believe it was, for a touchdown that he capped off with a 2-yard run. He looks the part. So I think, and the game was going on as he was playing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to shoot out a hot take. You may have to keep him on the 53. And of course, he kept going and he kept looking decent. And by the time his performance is over, I'm like, well, that's not really much of a hot take, because I think that may be the norm now, because he did do enough, I believe, to warrant a roster spot. And the Bears may not trust him as a UDFA rookie to come in as Fields is, number 2, but I think they like him enough to keep him on the roster.
Well, and what might be important here is that the league changed the rules a little bit in terms of being able to carry an extra active quarterback on your roster. Now, you still have to be counted as part of the 53-man roster, but you can dress a third quarterback. And so there may be a few more quarterbacks that are on active rosters. And so that's something to consider too, because if you're trying to hide this guy on the practice squad, there may be another team out there that has been impressed by his action and said, actually, we're going to grab this guy and sit him as our third quarterback because, we're a little uneasy, or they really like that skill set and they think it fits, right? I mean, would it be that crazy for a guy like Kyle Shanahan? I know he has more than enough quarterbacks this year, but would it be crazy if he said, this guy looks like I could probably use this guy pretty well? So Brock Purdy's health, you don't know. Sam Darnold's career has been up and down. Maybe they trade Trey Lance. And they claim a guy like that because they think he can get something out of it, and they've been burned so many times in the past with quarterback play. It's not a crazy thought that the Bears may have to protect this asset, this asset that they now have in a way that they weren't anticipating maybe at the beginning of the year, because he's showing, I think, production in the preseason at a little higher rate than anybody else expected.
We see this every offseason with preseason and training camp, where there are certain, unheralded guys that do well, and fans, oh my God, we can't risk him to waivers. And usually we're both like, come on, 99% of those guys make it through waivers, not a problem. Something feels different about this guy, just the way it's the quarterback position. Every team is looking for talent there. There aren't 32 good quarterbacks in the league now playing. So when you go to number 2s, and now, of course, you talk about the third quarterback rule, the number 3s, there could be a team out there. And then, of course, I initially thought he'd be a practice squad candidate. I thought the Bears would keep PJ Walker, cut Peterman, put, Bagent on the practice squad. But then he goes 9 for 10. He looks good. His footwork looks good. His arm looks live. He runs through his progressions well. This guy is a experienced quarterback, and I'll talk about a little bit more here in a second.
Well, why don't we just hop into the next category? We'll get into. We're going to keep calling it tweets because I don't understand the whole post X thing of what the heck's happening there. That seems silly to me. But let's open it up. Let's do yours first, since that's what you were referencing. But go ahead and hit your tweet.
So after the game ended, I kind of looked back at Bagent's, career in college at Shepherd, and he threw 1,151 passes his last 2 years in college. That's a ton of passes. And our guy Brendan Shagrew, writes for Bears Wire, said, for comparison, Mitchell Trubisky had 572. during his entire collegiate career, which is something we heard a lot about at the time when the Bears drafted him. Like, well, doesn't have a lot of experience. He only has the 1 year as a full-time starter. And this is also kind of the knock we hear about Trey Lance with the Niners. And that's kind of why I dug into Bagent's, collegiate background is, Trey Lance comes from a smaller school, so to speak. The COVID year, of course, killed his last season in college. He barely threw the ball at all. And even before that, he didn't have a lot of attempts. So people are surprised that Trey Lance is struggling. It baffles me because I always expected him to struggle. I thought he was more likely to be a bust than to be a good quarterback because you can't just bet on his tools. He hasn't thrown the ball. A guy like Bagent, he talked about in his press conference after the game, he's been playing quarterback since he was 6 years old. He's always been this guy, and he threw a ton of balls in college. And that translates, it's not NFL level. It's not the highest level of football, but it's still a lot of reps going through progressions, going through the footwork. And he even talked about his footwork. He had to change his footwork to go to the NFL. What Luke Getsy asked him to do is much different than what he did at Shepherd. And, he believes he has put in the work. The coaches believe he's put in the work. And that's why I think that he's going to make the 53-man roster.
I have to agree with you because, like you said, it's just there's a level of risk that may not have been there in the past with these new rules. And two, it's a quarterback position. Everything's elevated, and you have a guy that shows something. I think that you have to protect yourself and make sure that you're seeing it through yourself and not letting somebody else. Even if this guy is a career backup, that's a valuable commodity in the NFL. That's important. Watching on the other side, Gardner Minshew, kind of a premier backup here. There's like Gardner Minshew is a good football player, right? Like, I mean, he's not going to ever be a top 10 quarterback, but he's a good football player. He's someone that you feel pretty comfortable with. If you have to give him a spot start or a series of starts, if your starter goes down with an injury, that's a nice thing to have. That's what you're hoping for. A guy like this that can develop, and you can get that for cheap and be in the system, and you're going to know how to use him if you have to hit that panic button. So that's what we're talking about here. It's pretty fascinating because we have not ever had that luxury as far as I can remember. We haven't had a number one quarterback, as far back as I can remember that, you were super excited about, let alone a number two quarterback that you got at a discount that you're pretty excited about. Bears generally overpay for a backup quarterback to come in like a Chase Daniel or something to give that security.
Daniel, Nick Foles, Trevor Siemian, PJ Walker got a couple $1 million.
Let's talk about that.
There it is.
So our friend Brad Biggs, who you all know, says the Bears signed quarterback PJ Walker to a $4 million 2-year contract with $2 million guaranteed. And after the game, Coach Matt Eberflus said of the quarterback 2 job, I would say everything is open right now. So he made that statement in terms of the whole roster. Like, he was trying to be that, like, we're still in competition, all that. But again, the question was about the QB2 job, and he says it's an open competition. So PJ Walker, who has struggled in camp, I think that was been very noticeable at the 4 camp practices that I've been to. I think we both shared that observation at the 2 that we were there together, and certainly has not shown out in the first 2 preseason games. And so I ask you, given the 4 quarterbacks on the roster, how do you see this shaking out? And is there a world where Ryan Poles just eats a $2 million dead cap hit and moves on from PJ Walker?
It's possible. I mean, it's $2 million. I mean, it's not like you're talking about a ton of dead cap space. And the Bears are in a situation now with their cap. The cap is pretty healthy. If they do have to absorb this, that they can handle that right now. I still see that. We have, of course, one more preseason game, but right now I think they may keep PJ Walker and Bagent on the roster. I think they may cut Peterman just because the Petermans throughout his NFL career has not had a lot of people, clamoring for him. So I think it's possible that you keep Walker because of the money. You hope he kind of develops a little more, in the offense. Again, this is Walker's first year in the scheme. Nathan Peterman was here last year, so he at least has that edge above Walker. But Walker was signed because he was a little bit more athletic than Trevor Siemian. He's not an elite athlete, of course, but a little better athlete. It's tough, it's a money thing. The Bears don't need the money right now, but at the end of the day, man, if Walker's not getting it done, and like I said, we've been to a few practices, you've been to 4. The beat guys are there every day. They have not been overly impressed with Walker's performance. If it's an open competition, is Walker your best option to be Fields as number 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we felt like, yeah, okay, I saw this guy play in a couple of games. The name, he bounced around. It's a good story. Okay, sure. You bring him in to back up Fields. You see if that works out. You're bringing back Peterman, which no one's excited about, but even Nathan Peterman has looked much more efficient in his reps, right? I mean, Peterman does throw the ball to the other team from time to time, right? Even in practice, but that's been his signature, his calling card in his short career so far. But and then you have this undrafted free agent Bagent, who's sure coming up and rising up and making things uncomfortable for Walker as well. It's just maybe playing out in a little different way than what we would have thought coming into this season. And so I don't think it's crazy to think that they might just cut their losses and say, you know what, it's bad signing. It is what it is, but we're not going to move into this year with this. And we like the other guys that we have backing him up. May be a situation where you do keep Nathan Peterman because he does have that starting experience as well. And you think you've seen enough of his progression that maybe you feel comfortable, but it'll be interesting to see who is first off the bench against the Bills and who takes those quarterback reps in the final preseason game. Again, you want to make sure that Justin Fields is tuned up a little bit maybe and feels ready to go. But then after that, how are you going to split those quarterback reps between those 3 guys?
Yeah, it's still interesting to see how they plan to work this third preseason game. I would like to see some of the starters play. I can see the benefits. I can see what happens if they bench them. I'm okay with either way. As a fan, I want to see Fields. I think maybe he needs some of the work to get tuned up. There are no joint practices this week, so the Bears won't have that to kind of to say, well, he had plenty of work against the NFL defense during the week. That's not happening. I think you play your starters a little bit, especially since there is a week, a buffer between the regular season. But then, like you said, who's number 2 in this coming up game? Man, if it's Bagent, man, fans are going to go nuts again. Because if he comes in number 2, then it's Walker Peterman fighting off for the QB3 gig. That's going to be fun. Quarterback controversy in Chicago. Who would have thought?
This is my Bagent orange hat. All right. Hey, before we get to our stat of the week, I want to mention that we had a listener reach out to me, and he gave me 4 his tickets for the upcoming Bears-Bills preseason game. So we have 4 tickets for this game to give away. So if you were interested, hit us up. Lester, tell the listener and the viewer how they can enter into this raffle.
So our guy Bill Zimmerman gave away tickets a few weeks ago. So we're going to have the same rules. So it's really easy. So if you entered that contest, this is the same one. So for the Twitter guys, send a tweet to us at Second City Gridiron. Use the hashtag Bears Bills Tickets. And then you got 3 ways to enter. Include a screenshot that shows any or all of the following. That you are subscribed to us on our YouTube channel here on Second City Gridiron. That you are subscribed to our podcast channel, which is at Windy City Gridiron. That's, whether it's Apple, Spotify, wherever it is, a screenshot of that. And then there's the third way to enter, and that's a bonus entry, which is a screenshot showing you donated at least $10 to Bears Care, which is the Chicago Bears charity wing. So those 3 ways you can enter will get you up to 3 entries. And I know not everyone does Twitter because it's social media and sometimes
reasonable approach to life. Yes.
So for you guys that don't want to do that, you can send those 3 screenshots to us in an email. And our email address is secondcitygridiron@gmail.com.
2ND City Gridiron.
2ND City Gridiron @gmail.com. And you'll have 3 chances to enter. So we'll draw the winner Tuesday afternoon, and we're going to give you 24 hours to claim the tickets. The last entry, we had a hard time finding our winner. He wasn't able to contact us right away. We had to redraw, and I feel for the guy. It sucks. We did send him a T-shirt, though, from our guys at 500 level. But Tuesday afternoon, we'll pick a winner. 24 hours to claim. So if you don't claim by Wednesday, 24 hours later, we're going to redraw. We want to make sure those tickets get to a fan. They can take advantage of them for the game on Saturday against the Bills.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so let's get back into the categories. Caught up in a numbers game. This is hard because the reps are so spread out and everything, but did you find anything that you wanted to talk about?
My number this week is the number 0. and that is the number of misses from kicker Cairo Santos.
Oh,
3 for 3 extra points in the preseason, 4 for 4 field goals, including a 50-yarder yesterday against the Colts. And the reason I wanted to bring this up because there were a lot of fans thought he was in danger of getting cut this offseason. Of course, they signed undrafted free agent Andrew Schmidt. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. If he would have made the team, I would learn the correct pronunciation. But everyone thought Santos was in danger because last year he had a 2 or 3 game stretch where he missed a couple extra points. He talked about it. He said, I found my technique problem. I addressed it, and I should be fine going forward. Since he said that last year, he didn't miss any extra points. You look at his overall numbers from last year, he actually, I think, had 5 or 6 missed extra points, but some of those came in the monsoon against the Niners, the horrible weather game. I think it was the Texans, and I think there might have been some bad weather in the Giants. So early in his season, he had some misses, weather-related. He had that small little problem during the season, but he fixed it. And Santos is one of the most accurate kickers in NFL history, if you just go by the pure field goal numbers, and in Bears history as well. So I just wanted to point out that Santos is looks to be in season form.
yeah, and one of us was dumb enough to go through and chart all of those extra points from hash mark and flight path at one point last year to see if my theory played out, which it did, and then he corrected it. So good times when you go down rabbit holes and start tracking extra points. Man, something I never thought that I would do. Okay, mine is 4.67, which is not like the most impressive number, but it is the yards per carry for the 3 running backs.
Okay.
And the 3 running backs are Robert Burns, or Bobby Burns, as I like to call him, Roschon Johnson, and Deontay Foreman. I took out Travis Homer because he's not going to get a ton of carries. He's going to be in there in the passing game. He got 5 carries in this game, but he didn't do much with them. I'm not really worried about that. I think when he's in there for the passing game. I think it's going to be very obvious that there are much more pro passing situations. So 18 for 84 in a preseason game, right? And I just kind of impressed with how this Bears running attack continues to look. And so a lot of credit goes to that, to the offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, and just how this offensive line works with these talented running backs. And again, a guy like a backup fullback getting 8 carries for 40 yards. I think that just kind of speaks volume to the overall system. And I think it's something that the Bears can hang their hat on, that this is something that they do well. And I'm really excited to see what Roschon Johnson can do with a nice number of carries this year. I mean, he looks like, he's going to step right in and be productive. We know that Deontay Foreman can do a lot of damage with some carries, and then Juice Herbert, who didn't play, we know that he's got, explosive play material potential. So I just wanted to just bring that up, that was an impressive takeaway from the game, was all up and down the roster. They can still move the ball on the ground.
Yeah, I talked about the O-line at the top. I wasn't overly impressed with what they did, but they're sound in their fundamentals. There's a small crease there at times, and the nice thing about this stable of running backs the Bears have now is they're hitting the hole quick. They're getting their foot in the dirt. They're cutting upfield as quickly as they see that hole, and they're getting what they can get out of what's blocked for them. And there is no dancing. They're just kind of taking what's there. And I think it's a good group. We talk about Burns a little bit. I think he's destined for the practice squad as a backup fullback. The other guys you mentioned, I'm excited to see them grow, during this season. It's a good stable of backs, the 3 guys there. And then of course, Travis Homer is your 4th guy. I think he'll be in there every now and again. There's going to be some injuries. Something's going to happen with one of these guys. It'll happen. It's always happens at the running back spot. So having a stable of guys you can trust, along with Justin Fields, I think it's going to be another league leading running attack for the Bears.
I like it. All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here. Let somebody pay for our drinks tonight, and we will be on the other side of this doing everybody's favorite category, the 3 Bears. All right, Lester, we're back. Let's talk 3 Bears: hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. So hot bowl of porridge, someone who exceeded expectations or just looks really, really good. Who do you have for this?
I'm going to go with wide receiver Doris Fountain. 5 catches, 86 yards. He had the touchdown. he's also had a nice training camp. I can't see him. I'd be surprised if he made the roster, but I wouldn't be that surprised because he's a pretty good body. He kind of gives the Bears a little different look. Like I said, we saw him in camp. There was a video someone shared. I might have been at the camp you were at in Indianapolis, where he had a nice catch, in the end zone, similar to what he did here in against the Colts in the game last night. But Fountain, I mean, who expected him to kind of be one of the guys? And he's not alone. I mean, Isaiah Ford has looked pretty good. Simba Webster, as a backup receiver, also looked pretty solid. Maybe they're putting a little bit of pressure on the guy I'm going to mention when we get to the Cold Bowl.
Yeah, Fountain, former UNI guy, and then
That's
apparently
right.
was on the Colts at some point. So
Colts, Chiefs,
yeah, so he's bounced around a little bit, but yeah, I think he's absolutely had a very good camp, and maybe he's going to be a guy that you try to keep on the practice squad, and somebody goes down, or maybe he's fighting for that number 6 spot. But he has been making plays, and so it's very interesting to see. For me, we talked about the running game, and I had both Roshan, which is not necessarily in the spirit of the category of like exceeding expectations. I just thought he looked really good. I want to make sure I mention that. I've got to say Bobby Burns, right? Like, I mean, again, I didn't know who this guy was at the beginning of the day. I don't know how I didn't see him at any of the practices, or it didn't register to me. But getting that many touches in one game, 8 carries, 3 catches, right? Like, I mean, and looked pretty good doing it. Pretty impressive. And then I just wanted to mention number 80, Joe Reed. Had another nice kick return. And I say another, he had one in the practice with the Colts that he took to the house. And so, this wouldn't have caught him by surprise, because I'm sure they looked on film and was like, hey, this guy's got a little juice. And so I don't know much about Joe Reed, the wide receiver, but if Joe Reed is somebody who can be a returner, and the Bears find that they can't find that throughout the rest of their depth chart, again, that may be a route that they go, or they try to hold on to this guy in case an injury kind of forces their hand. But, being a core special teamer is a role in the NFL. And this guy, I think, showed a little juice on his big return there, and had a nice practice earlier this week. So I wanted to give a shout out to him.
Yeah, I like Reed too. I didn't mention him and I mentioned those bottom of the depth chart receiver. That he's another guy. He's looked pretty good in camp, and again, we're not talking about superstars here, but the fact that they have some decent depth options now in the practice squad group, I think that again it bodes well to what this team's trying to build here as a depth.
Well, let's flip it around. Cold bowl of porridge. You kind of teased it there. Who are you identifying for that?
So you talked about how special team, is important out of those depth pieces. So Equineme St. Brown, who played a lot of special teams early in his career in Green Bay, I thought he probably was a guy that was going to be a lock in Chicago. Of course, he started last year as the X receiver, but he didn't play much against the Colts. He didn't play much the prior week. He has no catches so far. He had a drop in the game. He kind of heard the footsteps coming and didn't make the catch, where, an NFL receiver, you expect him to make that play. But I looked at his special team snaps counts, and he didn't play at all on special teams against the Colts. And again, usually your depth guys that you're counting on, they start getting those special team reps in preseason. And week 1, he only had 4 special teams reps. So maybe the Bears are giving a couple other guys a look here. Maybe a guy like Fountain, or a guy like Reed, or Simba Webster, or maybe even Dante Pettis. They're trying to work in some special teams reps to kind of, find a way to push Brown off the roster. We talk about the salary cap. He was re-signed, but it's not, nothing where they can't cut him. So when he was St. Brown, who I had as a lock, now I'm starting to question that.
Interesting. My very similar thinking is actually Dante Pettis for my cold bowl, because this guy can catch a punt, which is an improvement off of maybe what they've had in other situations, but he doesn't do anything with it.
No,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, he just runs laterally, he's not getting upfield. And I suppose that it's not a negative if he just catches the ball, but that's pretty low bar. And if that's basically what he's being held on the roster for, is to be a punt returner, I think that's not enough for me. Like, that you have to be able to have a little bit of juice to be able to secure that roster spot. So I'm not particularly impressed with Dante Pettis, the punt returner. And if the Bears are at the point where they definitely don't need to worry about him on the field as a pass catcher, which, their depth chart kind of shows that they wouldn't at this point. And not that he provided much of that last year anyway. I just don't really see the point of Dante Pettis on the roster.
Yeah, Pettis was one of their starters last year. He had a handful of starts at receiver. And like talk about, if that's all you're doing is you're fielding a punt cleanly, yes, it's a very important part of the NFL. Your guy has to do that. Bayless Jones has struggled with that. Tyler Scott, who didn't play in the game either, had some up and down moments there. So Pettis can't make a roster spot because he can catch a punt. That's, to me, like you said, it's a low bar. I hope that's not what they're doing here with Pettis. Practice squad, maybe bring him back for that if that's the case, but you still got to find a guy you trust back there to field a punt. And like you said, have a little juice behind it, because Pettis in college was outstanding. He was, a record-setting return guy. That was his thing. That's kind of what put him on the radar of scouts back when he was drafted. Just hasn't translated for whatever reason. And you got to find a guy that can do it. Bayless Jones would be the guy if he could field the punt cleanly, because he's just so good with the ball in his hands after the catch. He's so fast. He's obviously a bigger threat, but if you can't catch, again, low bar, but that's the first part of the gig.
Just right. Your bullet just right. Somebody that met your expectations, that you're just excited to see out there doing his thing.
He's just solid week in, week out. That's our guy, Trenton Gill, a noted Swiftie, which he talked about. We saw some tweets about him at a Taylor Swift concert or whatever it was, or, he's
a t-shirt from us.
Oh, the t-shirt. That's what it was. That's what it was. 4 punts, 45.5 yard average. The guillotine is just, he's out there doing his thing every week. And that leads us into,
well, speaking of t-shirts,
t-shirt, there it is.
Nice. Speaking of t-shirts, the guillotine t-shirt is live on the 500 level website. We are very excited that it got approved by the NFLPA. We weren't sure because we put a little phrase on there that we weren't sure was going to pass. It's something to the effect of chopping the heads off drives before they start. That might be a little violent. And then there's an actual guillotine with his number across the blade and footballs chopped in half, laying around, with carnage. And it's a wonderful t-shirt. And fun. Bonus, Trenton Gill himself found the t-shirt and said, hey, who did this? And how do I get one? Very exciting to be able to respond to our punt king here and say, hey, that was me. And by the way, I coined that nickname. Glad you like it. Yeah, there we go. We're showing it on screen for those of you that are watching this can see this. If those of you listening to us, 500 level. They have a bunch of different options in terms of what you want. You want a sweatshirt, you want a long sleeve shirt, you want short sleeve shirt, a
onesie for babies.
You want a onesie for a baby. You want the ladies, they got a women's cut. They got tank tops, they got a bunch of different stuff. So just type in the name and that'll bring up all the different options, but just want a solid t-shirt. I've got the ones that are the tri-blend. They've been really nice. I'm wearing one right now, the Everybody 1 2 Step one. So anyway, that was really cool to see Trenton Gill out there. Hopefully we can get him a t-shirt and he'll wear it, and that'll be exciting. That'll make all of this t-shirt designing effort worth it if we get these players to like these things too, because that's what it's all about. We're trying to have some fun. We're trying to get some cool Bears stuff out into the world because we all need more t-shirts. We all need more stuff. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. My just right. When you watch preseason games, it's always tough to tell exactly what's happening because you don't know all of the opposing players in terms of where they're at, like how many starters are the Colts actually playing, right? And so sometimes a guy pops off versus the competition and you're like, oh, okay, well, this guy's maybe playing at a level that's a little higher than that, right? So this is tough to tell in the preseason. But for me, Noah Sewell, when Noah Sewell is getting reps, I expect him to look like he belongs at a higher level. And he just was flying around the field making plays. So to me, that's what I wanted to see because I believe that Noah Sewell is going to have significant snap share in this linebacking core this year when they go with the 3 linebackers. I think that was a really nice draft pick by Ryan Poles. And I think we're going to see Noah Sewell get a lot of reps. And so it's nice to see him look good in practice and then take that into the practice games like he did against the Colts and continue that maturation.
Yeah, I like Sewell. I think he looks, like I said, he looks the part. And that's what you want. I mean, he's a draft pick. He's coming in. He's been starting now. Him and Jack Sanborn both started. It's those guys are in battle, it would appear, for the strong side linebacker spot. TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds seem like they have, obviously, the Mike and the Will locked down. But who starts at the Sam? I mean, that's a storyline. It's been a storyline all camp. It's still a storyline. I think they are going to give the benefit of the doubt to the veteran, Sanborn, if it's even. But, who knows? I mean, Sanborn's healthy. He had, I think, 5 tackles in the game. They both started. We'll see how they flip the lineups when it comes against the Bills next week. But right now, it's a true camp battle between those two.
Yep, that's a good problem to have, right? You'd like to have two players that can start in a position. One of them is going to take the job, or maybe they share the snaps. It's not a bad thing. Not a bad.
And they're both versatile. They can play all 3 of those spots there at linebacker, which is
right.
Good.
Right, and that's the other thing is you'll see Sanborn maybe take some reps, at Mike at the middle linebacker spot, from time to time as well. So good stuff there. And then just wanted to shout out Travis Bell. Thought that he had a few nice plays. So want to make sure I give the 7th round rookie, some dap there as well. So let's close out here before we head over to the Q&A for the YouTube portion of the show. Any final thoughts before we close the book on number 2 preseason game?
No, it's fun. I mean, everything went as we hoped. There were no major injuries. I believe reserve tight end Daniel Carlson might have got dinged up a little bit, but they didn't say it was anything serious. So, and then the guys that have been injured, Coach Flus talks about how they're really close to coming back. We didn't see Cody Whitehair in the game, but it's not serious. Chase Claypool injury, not serious. These may all be back for the Bears for at least this week of practice. And if they're playing against the Bills or not, though, they should be ready for week 1 against the Packers.
Yeah, and again, we got like 3 actual calendar weeks before, we're hitting that first opening weekend Sunday. So there's plenty of time to get these guys healed up. You don't need to rush these guys back for a preseason game. But again, just want to reiterate, we got 4 tickets to give away to this last preseason game. We don't know if the starters are going to play or play extensively, but we've, a lot of teams are using that model to play in that 3rd game. So you should see some good starting reps against the Bills, which those of you that are complaining about not seeing against a good team, the Bills could win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
Like, they are a very good football team. They are stacked. And so we will see a very good football team come to Soldier Field. So if you are able to go and you're interested, make sure that you're hitting us up on Twitter or on our email at 2ND City Gridiron and showing us that you're following us, and we'll get you in that entry, and we will draw for that Tuesday, and we'll let you know who won those tickets, and we'll get those out right away. So
the rules for this, since I ran through them really quick, but I'm going to put an article at windycitygridiron.com at some point today. That'll be up. So that'll show all our rules, exactly what you have to do. Again, it's free to enter. Why not give it a chance if you're able to go to that game and try and win some tickets?
Heck yeah, go out and have some fun. All right, guys. Well, we will get out of here on the podcast. And until next time, bear down. All right, what do we got?
The first question is, there you go. That's a fun one.
Every game. In real time, and then the condensed, and then, John, we watch all 22.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dumb. It's dumb, but it's also the amount of stuff that you pick up the more times you see it. A lot of times you just have to remind yourself. I do the condensed game usually before this show because that's what's out by the time we do this show. And then that helps me kind of set like what happened when. And sometimes I'll rewind and watch a play a few times, but a lot of times I'm just okay. Or I'm watching like what happened on this play, one guy, whatever. But for the most part, if it's 35 minutes condensed game, it takes me maybe an hour to run through it. So I guess I'm reviewing things. The all-22, you can spend a long time running through the all-22 because you're seeing things that you don't see on the televised. Yeah, it's a 3-win season. Watching games 3 times is stupid.
I mean, that's kind of our stake, though, for this show. I mean, we're the guys that take a day, kind of, refresh it. Like, if we just go based off the TV copy, we're during the regular season, we're as fired up as a lot of fans. So it's nice that we kind of take a breath, take a pause, rewatch it again, and we see more nuance, kind of stuff. Oh, that makes more sense why they did this in this situation because of this happened and this. And oh yeah, Coach Flus talked about this specific play, or Justin Fields mentioned the read he had here. Oh, that's why it was an interception, because the receiver fell down. Where right after the game ends, where of course, why would he throw that pass, that knucklehead? And again, we get nuance. We understand what's going on. So that's kind of our shtick. We have to, kind of rewatch and kind of take a breath. And I think that's why our show is a little bit different than some others out there.
I agree. I like our vibe though.
Yeah.
How surprised were you that Bagent went in before Peterman? I wasn't ready for it. I was surprised, but I thought that was good because you want to. I mean, Nathan Peterman's still a younger guy. Like, I shouldn't say that the book's written on him at all. I mean, he's an easy punchline because he got thrown in a really bad spot early in his career, and he gave up a very high number of interceptions. Okay, but you kind of know what he is at this point, right? You don't know what this kid is, and so giving him reps against elevated competition. So he's not going against the 83rd and 87th guy on the opposing roster. He's going against more of the middle, the bubble guys, right? So now how does he look there? Or how does he look behind your direct backup offensive lineman blocking for him and guys that, again, are your own bubble guys, right? So you're just seeing if he can look good against that middle level of competition. And I think he showed out again. So I think that's a really good thing. And it's really smart by the coaching staff to be able to do that. He is the unknown, and you're trying to get as much information on that before you have to make a decision.
Yeah, I was surprised. Wasn't expecting. I wrote an article earlier in the week asking, are fans ready for more Tyson Bagent, because we had no Justin Fields. So I was expecting a quarter from Walker, a quarter from Peterman, and then Bagent would come in and kind of do mop-up duty. But the fact that they moved him up the depth chart, was not expecting that at all. But he kind of showed why. I mean, the coaches put their faith in him. They said, hey, we're going to give you a chance here with again, still not the ones, some weren't even the twos, but the fact that he got in a little earlier than most expected, I think that kind of showed the coaching staff's faith in him. And he rewarded that with, 9 of 10 passing, just ridiculous.
Cornelius asks about, or just is excited about Terrell Lewis. Yeah. And I mean, just at this point with this preseason, I don't see how, and he's got some pedigree, right? Like, so I just don't see how.
3rd round draft pick. Yeah.
I don't see how he doesn't make the roster. It'd be very surprising. And if anything, like, this is a Poles guy, right? Like, this is a guy that Poles has brought in. He's got more, loyalty to this guy than he does maybe some other guys that were drafted before he got here. Right. So think about it that way. I mean, I'll admit I didn't watch every snap of Doug Kramer. He got pushed around a few times that I did watch him. If he's helping out a guard, like a guard is engaged with the defensive tackle, and then he comes over as the second. Like, those were the reps that I think people are like, see, he's fine. And it's like, yeah, he's not really doing anything there. I think he missed a line call on maybe that PJ Walker sack because they all went right, and there was just an unblocked sack. And so I'm wondering if that was on him. Again, no way for us to know with who's making the line calls or what the call was, but that looked like a mistake. They all took the inside guy, and Kramer was had nobody over him. So I think that he needed a fan out left there. But anyway, he's not my guy. Like, I'm never gonna stump for this guy because I just haven't seen it yet.
There's a big Doug Kramer hive, in the comment section at WCG, on social media as well. I mean, he's an Illinois guy, obviously, so a lot of fans are hoping he can do something here. He was rough early, and I did try and watch him a little bit as the game went on, and on the rewatch earlier today. I can see why the Bears coaching staff drafted him. I can understand he's a pretty good athlete. He gets to the second level pretty quick. But like you said, he doesn't have the power at the point of attack. I didn't really see that too much. I think he's a practice squad guy, the way this roster is constructed. And that's fine. I mean, if he can go down there, work on some of his technique a little better, work on his core strength. A lot of times these guys come out of college, they have to do that. Plus, he had an injury. He missed all of last season, so now he's a year behind. So practice squad him, let him build up. Maybe he's a backup center for you next season. But as of right now, I can't see him making the
roster. And just follow up, another Cornelius Is that your real name, Cornelius Squalls, or is that some sort
I
of?
like that.
It's a cool name. I don't know if it. Anyway, how would you guys assess the Bears' depth on both the offensive and defensive lines? I mean, I think they can get a defensive line rotation that can be serviceable. But they don't.
Professional and solid.
But they don't have like a. They obviously don't have like a star, right? I mean, Yannick Ngakoue is a solid starter. Like that's not what I'm saying. But they don't have stars along that defensive line yet. So that's what I think. That's where a lot of people go. Like they don't have Myles Garrett. Well, yeah, 3 teams have a guy like Myles Garrett. But for the most part, I think that they have like a professional rotation, which hopefully that will allow them to be competitive. Offensive line depth chart, maybe not as great.
Nate Davis needs to come back and help solidify it. If he's the guy the Bears signed, which I think he'll be fine once he's in there. I mean, the Bears gave him pretty big money, a lot of experience with Tennessee. He comes in, Cody Whitehair comes back. The young tackles, develop, continue their progression. I think the starting unit is fine. I like Jatiri Carter as a backup in the interior. Lucas Patrick, he's injured as well. Maybe he comes back and kind of stabilize the interior stuff there. But after that, I mean, I'm not too high on Larry Borum as your swing tackle. When it comes to the two trenches, huh?
He didn't look that good last night.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to both sides, I'm a little more confident in the D-line being professional and solid. The depth on O-line, I think there may be some waiver wire moves here coming up.
I think they're not done. I think you're probably right. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't see necessarily good or bad. Like, a lot of you guys are talking about social media stuff and Twitter stuff. If guys don't fill up the stat sheet, then people get antsy about it. I thought he looked all right. Again, I didn't watch him on every rep, but the reps I watched, he looked like he was doing pretty well.
Better get off, good penetration.
Yeah.
There were a couple times got washed out, but he still plays a little too high at times. But he's a rookie. He's going to go through his growing pains, and once he hones his technique, I think he has a chance to be a pretty special player.
Yeah, he's big. He's big. He's strong. So just gotta keep at it. I don't even know if we should put this up, but stop that nonsense.
Stop it. Yeah.
Those are people that don't understand football. So just don't listen to them. There you go. There's your stat, Lester.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, experience matters at that position. You know what I mean? Just going through the mechanics, going through the footwork, taking snaps, reading a defense. Again, it's not top level competition, but, seeing those things matter because you can always refer back in your mind. Oh, I saw something similar to this, last year in one of my 500 some odd passing attempts. So having that in the Rolodex to go back to and reflect on when you see something, it helps.
The fumble, I didn't mention it in the show, but yeah, the Bobby Burns fumbled there at the end. But I mean, he got popped pretty good. The other guys are trying to make money too. And this is a fullback that had more carries in one game than he would conceive. I don't know how many carries did Kari Blasingame have last year. I don't know the answer, but not a lot, right?
0.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're clearly maybe protecting their top guys.
Yeah.
But 8 carries for the backup fullback is kind of insane. I mean,
plus he played some tailback too. He wasn't just playing fullback reps. He was in there. So the Bears trust him enough to know the playbook at 2 positions. So that's why I think he's probably a practice squad lock.
Right. I'm sure Aaron, our hype guy, is just loved it.
Always.
Just loved it, man. He just, number one Bears fan likes Jack Sanborn. Let's not forget that.
He had a pretty good game. I think I said 5 tackles. He's rounding himself into shape. The Bears were ramping him up because of the injury. So, by the time, week 1 rolls around, it's like I said, they'll have a tough decision who starts.
Keel John asked, will you guys have someone do a dedicated post-game pod this season? So I don't know if this has been announced, but feel free.
Bill Zimmerman, who does, of course, our Bears banter, does a great job, pulling guests for that midweek show. He is going to pick up and do our immediate postgame this season. So we're pretty excited for that. Bill is been around radio all his life. Obviously, he did a lot of stuff with Sirius XM. I think he had some stints at the Score back when he was still in Chicagoland area. So Bill knows the stuff. He brings the passion. He brings the fire. He's just a perfect choice for our podcast channel host to do the post game.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's the most emotionally available after a game. Like, he's willing to kind of bear that out and doesn't worry about the blowback or the counts. I think he kind of fuels him a little bit. Whereas I really hate the immediate post game because I like to come across a little more measured. And so when something gets me going, I don't trust myself to whatever I'm going to put out there. I feel like it's going to be a little too much. I don't know about Lester or myself, but Bill's been doing the 53-man depth chart projections a couple times. So
we'll probably do one here this week. I mean, this is the time for it. After the Bills game, I think the final cut down to 53 is the following Monday. So I'm sure this week, either myself or Bill or might do a roundtable. We'll talk to some of the guys. We'll have one on the site for sure at Windy City Gridiron.
Let me hit this one first. Eric said the secret Bagent man. And I got to tell you, Bagent orange is better. I'm just straight up Bagent orange is better. But, I'm open to whatever.
There's a lot of nice puns. This can go.
There are some good stuff here, right? Yeah. And Zimmerman and I were going back and forth last night, maybe having some fun with the 007 stuff. So I'll leave it at that. We'll see where it goes. But I kind of like Bagent orange. Again, it works. So Correct. Sometimes the best path is simplicity. I don't know about this surprise cut on offense and defense. I mean, Kindle Vildor is good as cut. I don't know that that's a surprise.
I think that's not a surprise anymore.
Gibson might be a numbers game lost. What do you think of that? And you had a good preseason game last week.
You talk about a polls guy, right? Travis Gibson's not a polls guy. I mean, he was drafted by Ryan Pace. He's kind of trying to find his footing. He had a good year a couple years ago. Last year, the first time Coach Flus and his staff saw him, wasn't the best of seasons. The emergence of Terrell Lewis, maybe he kind of kicks Gibson off the roster. I mean, you only keep so many guys on the D line, and Yannick Ngakoue is a lock. Dominique Robinson's a draft pick. He's been starting. He's a lock. DeMarcus Walker, he's a lock. If Terrell Lewis a lock, I mean, I think he is at this point. Is Travis Gibson going to be your fifth or sixth defensive end? I don't know, man. I think that's I would hate to see them cut him just because I think he does have a place in this league, but sometimes you get caught in a numbers game.
And maybe just don't fit. Yeah, just don't fit the system either, right? Like maybe he's just not a guy that has bought in, or maybe physically doesn't fit. I mean, I don't have the rationale for that necessarily, but sometimes guys just don't work out when coaches change. That happens all the time. So offensive one, I don't know what would be a surprise. I mean, I don't think they're going to cut Velus, but I mean, if they do, it wouldn't shock me, but it would surprise other people. I don't know. I mean, Walker, I guess, would be a surprise, given coming into the year, but you could kind of see it happening if they really feel confident that they can move forward with the other two guys. But I feel like
I talked about earlier, Equinemy St. Brown, possibly. Like I said, I had him as a lock. I had him in a lock, when the roster was constructed, but, based on his playing time, based on him not getting any reps in the third phase, maybe they're going to give Fountain and Joe Reed, some chances here. Joe Reed's a guy. He was a draft pick. So was Fountain. They were both draft picks. So they have a little bit of a higher pedigree than St. Brown, maybe. Oh, I don't know. I mean, St. Brown's their guy. I mean, because he comes from the Getsy scheme in Green Bay. I guess I'd be surprised if he was cut, but not really, if that makes sense.
Cloudy talking about Borum, and there's not a lot of tackles that are just going to get cut. That's a tough one. So maybe there's a guy out there, but I don't know that they love Borum, because it's not their kind of guy. Maybe he can catch on elsewhere. I mean, we've always talked about him being a good swing tackle for the right offense, but he might not be in the right offense anymore. I don't know. It's hard for me I kind of see why they don't see Borum as part of their long-term plans and why they've worked hard to replace him. But I mean, he really, when I watched him last night, he wasn't looking very good either. So he might be out of it because, you're a former starter and now you're pushed down the depth chart. It's very clear that they prioritize replacing you. That maybe is mentally, maybe he needs a fresh start somewhere to try to go out. So that may be something there. Couple of questions about the lineup. I think we can talk about our lineup. So this is very nice of you to say that. Seems like you like the show if you're saying that. So we appreciate that.
Our fans are best. I mean, it's people who listen and watch us, and we appreciate all the likes. We appreciate all the comments, all the shares. Those things matter in the world of YouTube. The algorithm, you guys like and comment on our site. That helps us get fed into other Bears fans' feeds as they're kind of scrolling through their videos, their short attention span as they kind of swipe the shows. We appreciate that. We appreciate all the likes and all the love we get from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the most part, we don't have a lot of knuckleheads that come into and I use the term knuckleheads because that's what Lester likes, but knuckleheads into the comment section here. So we do appreciate that. And then we do get the occasional Detroit fan, which is funny.
Where's he been? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, maybe he'll wait for the regular season, but he was on your appearance with Adam Rank.
He was. Yeah.
I was going back and forth with him in the comments while you were with Adam, but. And then just the last thing. So I think that in general, obviously EJ is bootleg and has works with Brett on the majority of the stuff that he does, and it's all year, right? Like his
off season is jammed with bootleg.
Right, he's doing draft stuff. He's flying around, right? And so he's putting most of his effort there. And then when the season starts, and for me, focusing on Bear stuff, Lester and I, this is kind of our primary show together. When the season gets going, we'll pick Bears Over Beers back up. Plan on us hanging out with us on Wednesday nights. We're going to do kind of an Ask Me Anything kind of hangout Wednesday, which is kind of the hinge day, right? We can still talk about the game that just happened, and then we can talk about the game coming up. So it's kind of the hinge moment for the podcast channel and for the video channel where we sort of flip the page and look ahead to the next week, but can still kind of talk about what just happened. But it'll be based on what you guys want to talk about. We'll come in with a couple thoughts of what we want to cover. But for the most part, we just wanted to have kind of a hang session, which was the original theory or construct behind Bears Over Beers anyway, which was grab a beverage, pull up a chair. Let's talk about the Bears.
I like that format. That's it should be a fun show this year. I should also mention Taylor Dow. She's bringing her Making Monsters to the video channel. She may not always go live because she does a lot of stuff with guests. So a lot of stuff she has to record based on their schedule. Of course, she works full time for 1010 XL down in Jacksonville. She does a lot of stuff for the station there. But so she records stuff when her guests usually have a chance to record. So when she can go live, she will. But otherwise, she does plan on recording her shows via video. Because we know a lot of you guys, some prefer video, some prefer audio only. So for you guys that like watching the video, you get a chance to see Taylor kind of do her thing. And then, of course, Bare Bones, Mason West and Danny Meehan. They'll be back again this year doing their stuff. They're pretty consistent with their Thursdays slot there. So they're going to kind of do that. They'll kind of take over our game preview stuff. And we may have a couple other shows in the works. We're still working on some of the details, but it's just like last year, man. We got a pretty jam-packed, solid lineup here on the video channel and over on the podcast channel as well.
Right. We got Bill doing the post game, and we got Bill, doing his regular interview type style show. And I mean, you're basically talking almost every day that we've got.
I have a show too. I forgot to mention my solo.
Yeah. Well, I was like, well, maybe you're not going to do it.
No, I still plan on doing it. And just like last year, when Mason's around, Dr. Mason West obviously knows a lot of stuff about injuries. My T Formation conversation is going to be late Friday night. Really quick show, just kind of give the last final report of the Bears injury session, kind of talk about what happened there. It's kind of good for those guys that are counting on what's happening for fantasy, for your betting stuff. So to kind of get an idea of who's playing, who's not playing leading into the weekend.
Yeah, and we'll have a schedule that we'll post here, before the season starts as we get it solidified, and we'll try to hit those time slots pretty consistently. Obviously, none of us do this full time, so there are times where things may have to move a little bit. I'm going to be doing some traveling at some point in October, so there may be some need to push times and stuff. But for the most part, we try to hit those times. Particularly, this show is generally the day after the game. We try to do 6:00 Central Time. and we try to stick to those kinds of schedules. So appreciate the questions on that, and appreciate you guys joining us today. I think I'm going to leave it there, and we'll be back to talk about the last game against the Bills, the last preseason game against the Bills, and then after that, we're talking real football. Maybe we'll do one in between. We'll do a preview show or something. So
Packer week, man. Got to do something for Packer week.
Yeah, we got to do something. So, all right. Well, enjoy. I would say enjoy the rest of your summer if you are in the Midwest. Do not enjoy too much outside because it is excessive heat right now, and don't mess around with that stuff. So, go buy yourself a cold beverage and enjoy that instead. So
nice.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you guys.